panelist, Mr. Raghavendra Shenoy. Raghavendra, well known as Raghu, has held positions of Managing Director for Johnson & Johnson Medical India. He is a healthcare leader who has over 3 decades of experience in healthcare and FMCG, having worked in India as well as neighboring countries. Raghu has honed his skills in areas of business development, multi-level stakeholder management, business modeling, and cross-functional leadership. He is an alumnus of IMD Lausanne and NMIS Mumbai. So Raghu, I would like to ask you this question. As we unlock, not all decisions taken were in the first phase. We saw that not all decisions which were taken were very well accepted by the employees. What, according to you, are the right policies, protocols, and procedures that could have been followed during the second wave? And the next part to it is, how do we ensure that we bounce back quickly and boost the morale, agility, and flexibility of the employees as well as the organizations? So over to you, Raghu.
Yeah, thank you, Sakshi. First and foremost, a big thank you to the India Healthcare Leadership Forum, Gaurav and Sakshi. Thank you very much for restarting this webinar series after a break. So you guys are back after a short break, I must say. Thank you for that. And also to all the people behind the scenes working so diligently to get this event together. It's not easy, I know that. So big thank you to your support team as well. And a big thank you to the esteemed panelists and participants from all over who have taken the time out to join this session on a Saturday evening when you could have easily spent the time with your family. But you have taken the pains to join us. So thank you so much for that as well. In the stipulated 8 minutes, it's going to be extremely difficult to cover every aspect of what Sakshi just asked me because as the previous panelist also spoke, it's a vast subject on its own. But I'll try and do justice to all the 3 questions. I'll split it into 3 parts. The first part you asked me was, why were employees unhappy or unwilling with the initial lockdown and what went wrong with that decision making? That's the first part. I think as happens in every adversity or any kind of a natural disaster or calamity, one thing that stands out is the leadership priority. And in this case, in the case of this unprecedented pandemic, the priority from leadership was to strike a fine balance between the 2 P's that they are to choose from. The first P is obviously from the P&L, the P from the P&L, and the second is from the P from the people. So striking this balance is easier said than done. You're responsible for delivering numbers and revenues for the organization as well. At the same time, you're responsible for the well-being of your people. So striking that balance needs a lot of empathy. So that's the E. So everywhere we look around, we are on the E journey. Everything is E today. But the biggest E leaders should keep in mind is empathy. And I think somewhere, some organizations that I've been talking to, this E was sadly missing. And I think that is what was creating this whole fear, the aura of fear, uncertainty within the minds of the employees. And they were unwilling to come back to the workplace. Yesterday, I just read a survey in the US, about 1,000 adults were surveyed, of which almost 39% said that they are willing to quit the organization if they don't get permission to work from home. I mean, it's come to that level. Out of that, 42% were millennials who want to still continue working from home because they're not prepared mentally or whatever. I think empathy builds in a lot of trust, and trust brings in stability. So empathizing with the employees and understanding what are the different fears that they are facing in their minds. It's not easy. I mean, there are people in my complex who have not stepped out of their homes for the last 1.5 years. We have such kind of people. So think of what the employees have undergone in these 1.5 years. And that is where that empathy piece plays a big role. Because if people are not convinced that coming back to the workplace is going to be safe, obviously they'll decide against. I think that is one of the biggest challenges that organizations have faced. In the midst of it, we've also seen a number of organizations, because of whatever compulsions, have had layoffs. Now that is like a double whammy. Within the pandemic, getting laid off and losing your job, especially when people, they are sole earning members or only the breadwinners of the family. Imagine that kind of a situation. So doing something like this in the pandemic is not only about the people who got impacted, but it sent tremors across the whole organization, because everybody asked the question to himself or herself, am I going to be the next? So I think that was another big disaster, and which kept people away, and it really worked on their psyche as to whether this is going to continue, what are we going to be? Even the commute to the workplace, is it safe enough for us to go to the workplace? Are the protocols in place in the workplace? What kind of a future do we have? Is that secured by the organization? I think these were all the issues that were all the employees were facing, and it was working on their minds. So I think those are some of the decisions which went against, and people were really unwilling to take that plunge between the first and the second wave. Now, coming to your second part of the question around protocols, policies, and procedures, I think the previous panelists have spoken a lot. I'll just give my take on these, because I had the good opportunity to work closely with an Indian pharma company, 5,000 employees, 6 locations, including the corporate office, 3 manufacturing plants, R&D, and So the thing that stood out from this whole episode after the first wave and before the second wave, I think again, it come back to leadership. So the leaders in this organization chose the P of the people. Okay, and they said that we will not leave any stone unturned. We will not cut any corners. And we will do everything to ensure the safety, well-being, security, future of our employees. I think that was the most important decision taken by the leadership. All of us have read about what Israel has done. I think I always quote this example of Israel. Small country, 9.2 million people. Prime Minister Netanyahu, very early on in the pandemic, booked 25 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine at a premium. I mean, who does that? 9 million, 25 million, accounting for all wastage, everything. The point that he made was every human life is precious and needs to be saved. That's it. His only concern. Why did he stock so much? Because he knew. Why did he pay a premium? He knew that once the vaccines are out in the market, there'll be a mad scramble and people may not get it. So why not pre-book and ensure that every Israeli citizen is saved? I mean, look at the thought. So I think this is what leadership defines. This is what leadership showcases. And when I say empathy and trust and stability, and all this comes in. Now is the time for the sensitive side, the caring side of leadership to be demonstrated. Very simple. So this organization, I would say, I'll quickly touch upon some of the points that they did around the protocol, policy, procedure part, and then I'll move on to the next part about bouncing back. So here, what they did was very simple. The core leadership team took complete accountability for the whole organization. All the people within their departments, they took accountability, and this was the central task force in the corporate office. They pulled up. They constituted their own task force within corporate services, admin, IT, finance, HR, all of them. And then every department had to look at getting these protocols in place, working around only 3 things. A safe commute for people who are going to be traveling from their homes to the office, wherever the office is. A safe workplace, because that's where they're going to be spending 8 to 9 hours. And the third, a safe and secure future. That's it. So now, when you think about these 3 things, and you know that you're not going to be cutting any corners because it's going to need a lot of resources to put all these protocols in, things automatically started falling in place. IT department came up with a very nice app, which every employee had to go onto the app every morning and report his own and his family members' health status. There were like zones, questions around their health, and there were grading like yellow, orange, red, and green. The yellow ones would be tackled differently, and so on and so forth. So that app was a must before they entered the premises. They had to do it at home. The commute was very simple. That was the simplest, I think, because buses were arranged from every location to the workplace. That was the simplest part, and buses sanitized regularly and all that. So the transport department managed that part very well. Security played a big role because of the screening of the employees at the gate of all the premises, and then the cafeteria, and then the staggered timings and staggered work hours, staggered timings in the cafeteria, and all these protocols quickly fell into place. They went to the extent of looking at what would happen if any of their employees actually came down with the infection. So tie-ups with the hospitals in the neighborhood. That was one big decision, because employees' concern was more around their own safety and health. So that was taken care. So next was when the vaccination, the vaccines became available, a huge vaccination drive across board to get all the employees vaccinated. That also helped and, allayed all the fears in the minds of the employees. The same was extended to the family members as well. So I think when you take care of all these aspects, there's a lot of trust that comes in, and people start trusting their leaders, the organization, and really all these protocols and procedures and policies that even around insurance, as Mr. Lalwani mentioned, a lot of companies went out of the way to get the insurance cover extended, all that. So that also was taken care. In the event of death of an employee, those things were also taken care. I think a lot of organizations have already done that. Education for the children till they are 18, and then jobs for the spouses and stuff like that. So all this was implemented. So I had the opportunity to watch all this and contribute to all these protocols in a very fine manner to ensure that nothing is unanswered. I think these really helped the organization. On the revenue side, they were the lucky ones, because the pharma company, they were into specialty. So the revenue top line was not so impacted. So they could really, figure all this out. But I'm sure where there are challenges, I think organizations which did not get revenue going in these 1.5 years will have the bigger challenge, where I can talk a little bit more later on maybe. But this is the time for disruption beyond innovation. You need to go back to your drawing boards and understand how now you can disrupt using e-commerce, using all your strengths, wherever your strengths are lying. How can you lease out your services and things like that to get some revenue going? This is the age of collaboration. I mean, look at all the collaborations around us. So it is, whether it's the AstraZeneca Oxford collaboration, whether it's the Sanofi GSK collaboration, everybody is coming together to fight this pandemic. So collaboration is the way to go, and you can always look at revenue streams coming from such kind of collaborations, where smaller companies may not have the wherewithal in sales, marketing, supply chain, where you could actually lease or rent out your services. So these are things that you could really look at. So these were the things around policy procedure. Now, coming to the last part of what Sakshi asked me around bouncing back. Now, this is going to be, there are no right or wrong answer, because bouncing back is possible only if your employees are in the right frame of mind. And whatever you have done up till this stage, if they have that right frame of mind where all their safety and security issues have been resolved, it's very easy to bounce back. Where organizations have failed is the point where they did not engage with their employees even during the work from home, remote working period. That is where a lot of employees felt left out. Initially, it was quite okay when there was a national lockdown. People were talking regularly and all that was happening. But I think now it is even more imperative. By the way, in the protocol thing, there was a 24/7 help desk with a doctor, psychologist, counselor, all 24/7 they were available. That plays a big role in bouncing back. Upskilling, a lot of people mentioned, the other panelists mentioned about upskilling, and so the organization made changes around their policies where people could take courses on Coursera or Udemy or these kind of platforms and build new skills on the digital side, and get more and more upskilled. So that was another thing. So bouncing back will be a culmination of all these efforts to make people really understand what is it that they will be doing in the future, making their life easy, focusing on the mental agility part, focusing on the flexibility around the workplace, around everything. So I think leaders also need to understand that some of the employees will be grieving as well, having lost a loved one. So the mental thing, the mental health and well-being also is going to play a big role. So bouncing back will depend on all these factors put together, when organizations will then start going back to kind of near normal as in the pre-COVID area. So I think these are some of the points that I thought I will touch upon.
Thanks a lot, Raghu. I think excellent insights. So on the lighter side, we don't talk about vaccines and Indian vaccines and foreign vaccines, because we don't want our Twitter handle to be banned. Neither we want FIRs to be filed against us. So over to you, Sakshi.
Yeah. Thank you, Raghu. I think great insights. As you very rightly said, empathy is the key point. E for empathy, E for employee. And this will all help in bouncing back. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So going